Let's kick this over here. Bam! Bam! Hope you guys are doing good. Let me turn my speakers down just a little bit. There we go. So I have this like Samsung little headset in. So the gaming stuff, we use the big headset and it has adjustable volume and all that. But for the art stuff, it's a little more streamlined doing the little earbuds like this, the Samsung ones. And the little dial that does the volume up and down doesn't work whenever I'm hooked up directly to the sound card. So yeah, it is what it is. So I have to turn my speakers down to like 5% volume so it doesn't destroy my eardrums. But yeah, we're going to be doing some just fun Spider-Man artwork today. I already have the sketch kind of set up and I've established some value, very flat values, but some values. I'd like to get in there, do some painterly stuff, do the kind of underpainting look, all that. We're going to kind of dig in for a few hours. I do have a Zoom call, Zoom meeting a little later. So we'll probably get a solid, I don't know, 2 hours in, 2 hours of painting. So I'll leave here about a little after lunchtime to do my Zoom meeting. So yeah, we're gonna hang out. We're gonna do the thing. Let me get my fancy art glove on. That's how you know it's real. And then I'm a pro, as I have one of these art gloves. Probably need to replace it out. It's like starting to tear around the seam, but it is what it is. Here, I'll mute this mic and move it over, and then we'll get to the art stuff. So we'll kick over here. Nguyen, how are you, my friend? Good to see you. There we go. Hopefully that's good. There we go. Might be kind of buzzy, hummy. Let me do something about that real quick. Let me go to filters, noise gate. Oh, that's why. Intuos, hello. Let's kick that down to 26 and that to 35, maybe? Does that help? A little bit, hopefully. So yes, I actually have a screen tablet here. Actually, let me show you what I got going on. I have a Huion Canvas 22. It's the first edition of it. They actually have a second edition, which I probably need to get because the way this pen works, it just uses a AAA battery. But the new pen on the volume 2, it just works. You don't have to have a battery on it. It's just magnets and all sorts of crazy stuff. But let me kick back over here. And then that way I can grab this right here. And you can kind of see what I'm rocking. It's a little out of focus and my mic's in the way. But yeah, so have all this right here. For that, it works well. I like the Huion quite a bit. Huion and XP Pen are really my kind of go-tos for good art brands, in my opinion. You don't have to spend all that money on a Wacom tablet. You know, you don't need that. The drivers for that stuff usually don't work all that well. But with the Huion and the XP Pen, they've worked fantastic for me. So yeah, we have our just sketch here and basic values. Now I am in Krita. I'm really liking the sketch brushes in Krita quite a bit. We're going to kind of refine as we go. This is based on Miles Morales. So I have some, let me find my, there we go. So I have some just pictures to, I'm just going to do the values really, but then I needed to see the kind of color coding. So kind of the red for the hood, black for everything else, really. And then some of the shoes. He has Nikes. I put Adidas on there. But, some of this. Yeah. So, like, I kind of dig the more stylized look. But I'm going to go for the oil painting look, I think. It's kind of the comfort food thing. Yeah. The Wacom tablets, in my opinion, are not worth the money. Everyone I've ever used whenever I did like graphic design stuff and studio, they broke. We'd have to either replace it outright or like not the gyroscopics. That's not really, because it doesn't tilt or anything. But like the internal stuff, like the pressure sensitivities, would kind of be out of whack. And it would always be because there was a computer upgrade on one of the computers in the lab. But then that driver messed with the drivers. It was a headache. But like XP Pen, Huion, those are two that they're like a fraction of the cost. But they just work. You hook them in, and I have this hooked up through like a DVI port, and yeah, external power. So it's basically a third monitor, so I can stretch out stuff and do that. But yeah, I'm digging it. I always recommend that stuff, especially because it's more reasonably priced. Like something like this, yeah, $400 to $500 sounds about right. This same size on a Wacom tablet is like $2,900. Like there's no excuse for a $3,000 tablet that breaks all the time. No drivers for Windows 11. Yeah. Bought the 2017. Yeah. So yeah, the older stuff seemed to work okay. I don't know what it is. I think it's just because there's so many more computers now that can use art programs, because back in the day you had PC and Photoshop and maybe Corel Painter, and then you had Mac, and that was it, right? And they had Photoshop and like Painter. But now there's hundreds of programs, and like getting all that, like I'm not smart enough to think I could build a device that would work throughout all of them, but like I've had great luck with these, so I'm gonna stick with them, I'll move the refs right there. I don't need those for right now. So what I'm hoping to do, just going to start making some marks. I'm going to refine the design a little bit. I like the puffy jacket sort of, but then this part looks like a turtle shell. So I need to fix this. Really, it's just going to be him. It's going to be him right here. This is a building, but we're going to make it look a little messy. Have some fun with some texture brushes and stuff. And then, yeah, I'll add some color near the end. But really, I might just do kind of the, what is it called? Grisaille? Where it's a kind of a grayscale underpainting. And then you can kind of paint on top. But yeah, I'm loving Krita. I always love Krita. I have my favorites up here, so we have some dry brushes, wet brushes, some markers, RGBA. I do have the Memi Leo brushes, which I highly recommend. They are free, but they are kind of system hogs. They tend to slow down a lot of people's machines, mine included. Not super bad, but like whenever we swap over to it, it'll take it a minute to load up. But we'll do that here in a little bit. And then what's cool is we can take the kind of painterly stuff here from Krita. We're going to bring it into maybe Rebelle, do some more painterly stuff, some pigment brushes, bristle brushes, all that stuff. And then move it into Clip. We're going to do a lot of that. Probably not all of that today, but, we'll see how far we get. But really, it's kind of the design portion of it right now, and I need to... See, I'm trying to experiment with line weight. I know I talked about it last time, but it's definitely a thing I need to work on. Let's do this one. Yes. Yes. Okay. Move my keyboard. I'm a keyboard hotkey kind of guy. So we're going to do those. And see, this foot is closer to us. Collar's closer to us. So really anything closer to us probably should be darker, you know? In fact, you can probably get rid of the lines for the stuff back here, but we'll get there. But yeah, I might kind of straighten this out. Maybe keep a little bit of the... that, and then get rid of some of these lines here. Just needs to be a little less turtle shelly. Yeah, there we go. And then gonna do that. Come to the values, pick that one. Find that edge a little bit. So I am noticing lately, doing the more refined sketches and kind of putting in these flats to get readability works really well. Like, this is how I have been drafting my Magic the Gathering sketches to turn into art directors. They really like this type of thing, to where they can see foreground, middle ground, background very quickly and easily. Yeah, the blending of it, yeah, that is something I've thought about this morning, actually, is like, I do like some of the RGBA in the Memolio. Yeah, the only thing is they look very stampy. I've said that before, and people have made fun of me on YouTube about it, but like, they are kind of like stamp brushes. They feel like a picture that you're repeating over and over, as opposed to a natural kind of brush movement. A little confused. What drawing should I invest? Professional artist monitor? That really depends. So I actually have a few friends that are also pros that do not like touch monitors. The thing you have to think about with kind of the artist touch monitor, the colors are not going to be as vibrant, and the contrast ratio isn't going to be as high or energetic, I guess, as a standard standalone monitor, like with, and they're going to be limited on the refresh rates. They're going to be, so it depends on what you want. I don't mind this stuff being slightly, like the colors and the values and stuff on the art monitor being slightly flatter, simply because I have two other monitors plus like 5 mobile devices that if I need to check how it looks, I can just drag over my piece onto other monitors and be like, oh, this needs to be a bit more vibrant. And, you know, because I have a Samsung, an HP, and then a Huion. So I have 3 different monitors. And even though they're set up with the same contrast and brightness and stuff, every profile for a monitor is going to be slightly different. You've probably seen those little machines that are like calibrators, that they almost look like a little spider. It's funny, we're painting Spider-Man. It's like a little spider claw, and it like clicks onto your monitor, and then you hit a few buttons, and what it does is it actually gives you a readout, but can match every monitor exactly the same as far as like brightness, contrast, and stuff. Which should be a perfect solution, right? It should be that, oh, you do that and you hit all of them and they're all going to be the same. But the way art monitors work, they don't have the same dynamic range. They don't have the same like 0 to 255 sort of math behind it. They compress them down to where it's even more limited than the limited range on like an HP or Samsung dedicated monitor, and definitely less than like a high dynamic range, big bright screen. So it really depends. I don't mind doing it here, but a lot of people, I even have a Huion, they're just called a pen tablet. It's like a flat tablet that has the hotkeys and stuff, but you set it on your desk and you're looking at your monitor and you're drawing that way. It takes a little bit of a learning curve, but it's not bad. Like, you can get used to it in like an afternoon. if you spend like 2 or 3 hours with it, it's pretty easy, right? And the benefit of that, you're looking one place, you got your keyboard right here, you got this right here, and then you can just work. But you're getting the feedback directly on the good monitor, you know, instead of like, I'm going to use my art monitor and then drag it over to these other ones, which can take a lot of time. And sometimes I forget to do it. I'm just painting and I'm like, okay, the painting looks good here. And I don't check it on the other ones, and I send it off to a client and they're like, oh, the colors look a little dull. And I was like, oh, duh, I need to heighten up the vibrancy. I need to do some other stuff. So it can get in the way a little bit, but I don't mind it. A lot of my stuff, like, I think if it reads well here, it's going to read well in print because the brightness isn't going to be unnatural, and then the colors won't be so eye-poppingly, like, contrasty that, you know, that it won't print well. What's up, Tortoise? Barry, hello. So I use Photoshop. I have hundreds of thousands of brushes, and I make brushes for it and stuff. It's just to get in and start making art. Photoshop, I don't know. It doesn't quite feel as good as the other programs. Because, yeah, I literally have Photoshop open right now. Like, I have it right here, and brushes and stuff set up. So I use that for, like, finishing touches. A lot of the gradient mapping, or, you know, if I add noise, if I add any filter, any sort of stuff like that, like an unsharpened mask, I'll go in and do kind of the post-production stuff there, like any light blooms or any of that. Photoshop's great for that. But for actually painting and drawing and stuff, it's Krita, Clip, Rebelle, Art Rage, Paintstorm Studio, really anything but Photoshop. Like, Photoshop's a little more design-centric in my mind now, you know? If I want to paint, I just think there are better painting softwares. We'll kind of hit these up, and then Spec, what's up, my friend? Yeah, heavy paint's good. Heavy paint's good, but I can't plan anything in heavy paint. It's not like I'm gonna go and make this great picture of a landscape in heavy paint. Like, it's not one of those. I open heavy paint and just start making marks, and then whatever I see, that's kind of what ends up happening, you know? So what's cool, I need to see, how do I want to render this? Like, how do I want to render this painting? Do I want it to be a little more realistic? Do I want it to be, since it is a comic book character, we can get away with a little bit of fantastical stuff? Yeah, and what's cool is, like, if you hide the sketch layer, you can still kind of see what's going on, you know? And this is what we started with right here. Okay. So really what we can do, we did values. Values are fine. If I wanted to get the RGBA brushes and come in and start doing some of this, like, there's that, and I can get some white and, like, bring this in, you know? Let's do thick paint. How much texture is on that? Not much. I mean, not a lot of impasto stuff, right? But there's, like, the wet brushes. I have some of these dry canvas. Let's see what it looks like. Oh, yeah, that's more of a kind of a roller. I see. Wet paint mix. Yeah, that's a good one. They go on pretty strong, though, is the thing. But yeah, that's good. See, I like the fact that it has a little bit of an impasto edge to it, without it looking too artificial. But then you bring in some of the thick dry. You have something to play with a little bit. And thick paint. Gotcha. Yeah, Corel Painter's good. It took them a long time to get good. They started off really great back in like the early aughts, and then everything else kind of surpassed it. Like for performance and usability and all that stuff. And then and now they stopped making it. At least from what I have seen. They are not making Corel Painter anymore. They're doing Corel Draw. They're updating that quite a bit. But not any of the Painter stuff. Which is interesting. See, I'm kind of wanting to get a little bit of a variety of strokes and stuff. And we're really going to do this part in Rebelle. But I want it to have that natural underpainting look. And sometimes that's hard to do artificially. It's hard to do in a digital realm, you know? I'm going to try to make it happen. Do that edge. The edge is really contrast heavy here. What's cool is we can also do that on the inside of the the thing I need to try with Procreate is the actual like Procreate Dreams. The like animation thing, because I think that'd be really cool. I'm not an animator, so I don't know really the first thing about it. But I just love those motion comics, you know? Like, I don't know if you guys are like World of Warcraft fans, but back in the day, they would make motion comics. Or like, I know with Metal Gear Solid, they got Ashley Wood to do the artwork for Portable Ops and Peace Walker and stuff. And did a motion comic for Metal Gear Solid, the graphic novel, which is awesome. Like, I think I would like to do that, but that takes a lot of time, and it's time I don't have. So, here we go. Got that. We'll come over here. Let's try. Get this. We're going to add in our flats right now. This means we're going to come in and make some of this darker. I will say something nice about Krita is it can go from that kind of painterly brush engine type stuff to very good hard round, you know, high flow brush very, very well. I think that's why I'm really liking doing sketches and like, because it can kind of go back and forth really easily. So we have that. This is going to be here. And now what do I want? Do I want back here to be darker? Or do I want closer to be darker? Let's try this. Yeah, so the what's it called? The dab engine? Like you can make your own dab and then that was really cool. I wish they would have started that type of stuff earlier. And I think that would have been its main claim to fame. But then it just never quite hit for whatever reason. Here, let me get these. I'm thinking about doing these values just to, I say values, these are actually just more of the flats of the contrasts. Like light on dark on light on dark on light on dark, kind of the checkerboardy type stuff. That way you can read all of it. And I wonder if I should just start adding the color now. Because, like, this is sort of what we're going to go with. This motif right here. The jacket's a little different, but... So yeah, we can get like this nice red here. That might actually be cool, is if we just do grayscale and red. We could actually probably make that look pretty awesome. With the oil paint type look. Let's see, and then this will come down here. Keep this looking somewhat sharp. And then like bottom of the shoe maybe. And then maybe the gloves. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Then this would actually be through here. Here we go. Let me get these right here. Huh. So this would be how I would paint this in like a Zorn palette. The Anders Zorn palette with a... And the Anders Zorn palette is a traditional limited palette. It only has 4 colors. Technically only 2 colors and then a black and a white. But it's a very classical painting. Like a very classical painting look. Because you get ivory black, titanium white, yellow ochre, and then, I mean, back in the day, it was cadmium red, but cad red is different now than it was way back then. So there's other things that you can get. You can get like scarlet. You can still get a cadmium red hue, but like don't get real cadmium red because it's poisonous. Like it's just filled with lead. In fact, I bet a lot of companies don't even sell it like that anymore. That. Okay. We get that. Do this, bring that value down, keep the saturation high. Just do something like that. But yeah, I don't really know how I want to light or shadow this. Because I think it'll be fun to get like nice, crazy brushwork on the building. And like here on the outskirts. I don't really know how I want to handle lighting and darkening and all that stuff. So what's neat about Rebelle, I will say lately, because they've added the blending modes on stuff, I like the fact that every brush can be every kind of brush. So like you can make any brush a blender brush, or you can make any brush like a thick, oily, you know what I mean? Like they've done a good job at figuring out how all of those pieces work together. And I like using the daggers and the palette knives and stuff to do all my blending, because it looks really good, especially the dry one. It does a great job of like naturally looking correct. Got that. Let me come over here. So it's a little too much right there. It's kind of a crazy brush. Yeah, I can. Come in here and do something like this. Let's do thick paints. Okay. I wonder if I can just come in here, color pick this. Yeah. And just start making the texture more interesting inside of the jacket. Give us something to do a little bit. Something to hang our hat on. What's cool is you can always do the contour lines, like whatever way the actual form is going. If you do that, then you'll make decent brush strokes, you know? Let's see. What software do you use the most often, and why do you use it? So it's funny. I want to say lately, I've actually been using more Clip Studio Paint, because Clip seems to be kind of that perfect middle ground. For sketching, I've been using Krita a lot, just because it's way easier to get in here, and because they have like these textured kind of brushes. I don't really use it to finish a painting, but I can definitely use it to start one. You see what I mean? And we got these cool little like brushstroke hits right here. I'm not going to keep any of these really, but it's nice to have that to be able to play around with later and be able to add to without it looking unnatural. Yeah, and kind of this sort of noisy look. It's just nice to have it. But Clip is great because I can get as like fine-tuned as I want, like essentially pixel perfect, or I can import some messy painterly brushes. And the way the wet into wet engine works, I can just use it for so much stuff. And I don't really even use any of the other big features. It has a ton of great like animation features. It has like 3D models you can drag and like pose. It has perspective grids and all that stuff that you can lock into. I mean, Krita has a lot of that too, but Clip is just made to be a deluxe suite for illustrators, and it works. It absolutely is. It's just so much fun to use and so like easy to use that, yeah, it's a joy and just so much fun, because you can spend as much time as you want in there and you're gonna get kind of what you need, you know. Then I'm curious, do I want I'm gonna put shadows question mark, because I need to figure out how I want to light him. And this is Miles Morales, by the way, if you can't tell from the colors and all that stuff. So here's the tricky thing about what this idea is and why I'm kind of going back and forth on how I want to add shadow or highlight. This is an overcast, sort of snowy day. So the rule is when you have a lot of cloud coverage, like if you're you're outside, it's not quite storming yet, but like it's a lot of gray skies and stuff. There's not a lot of harsh highlights or shadows. Everything is just kind of what it is. That's why whenever you go outside and it's kind of gray outside and you're like, man, it's kind of a drab, dull day. It's because there's no big dynamic hits of light anywhere. There's no big shadows like stretching and making stuff look cool. And like, so you're sort of at this point to where everything just kind of looks like itself. You're not developing a lot of form, you know? it makes it trickier. It really does. Because if there's no harsh highlights, that means there's no harsh shadows. There's no cool dynamic lines. There's nothing to latch onto. You just sort of kind of have to like figure it out. So that's why I think if we come in here and if it's if it's sort of snowy overcast, usually the rule is if you have cool light, you have warm shadows. And then if you have warm light, you have cool shadows. It's just not always true, but it's a good starting point. But whenever you have neutral light, you kind of have neutral shadows. So once again, you know, because you have to think of it like kind of like a pendulum, right? Like, oh, cool over here and warm over here. So if you have cool highlights and warm shadows, there's a lot of range to get between the two. But then if you have like neutral and neutral, you're just kind of there. Nina, hello. Thank you for that. Welcome. It's good to see you. But it's just not, there's no energy. Like there's no, and whenever you're working on something like Miles, you're working on a dynamic comic book character, like who literally is made to do like cool poses and foreshortening and like web slinging and all that stuff. It's different to kind of approach it like, oh, this is a overcast painting of a, you know, a landscape. You know, you want to stay true to the character, but you also want to like stay true to your art rules. So maybe what I need to do is look up some like, you know who's really good? Hold on. Yeah. Let's go take a look. Let's take a look, see at how our boy does it. Let me go. Let me hide those. How do we do this, buddy? All right, James Gurney. Teach me, master. By the way, this book, Color and Light, is an absolute necessity if you're serious about art. This is the kind of like the holy book. You know what I mean? Like this is one of them because the dude's a genius. And imaginative realism. I have both of these signed. He also was very nice and signed a postcard for me and sent it to me, which is cool. But like, here's this Prince. Okay, so kind of a perfect example. Let's find a nice overcast. That one still has a lot of light. Yeah, let me do a Google image search real quick, and then I'll bring up some stuff. Image. So I know he literally has some in his book on overcast painting. I guess he does do a little bit of hits of highlights and stuff anyway. So maybe we just need to kind of follow the form and see where that gets us. Yeah, see, he did a really good job here. Yeah, he has some highlights and stuff. The value range is pretty similar. But also he's like, he's genuinely painting. I think he's at church and he's painting people at church. Like, he always carries around stuff, so that's not surprising. Let's see, how do you do this one? Okay. So yeah, solid local value, and then kind of add some spice to it. A little seasoning. So some, I hate to call it flat, because this is definitely not flat, but like, in my mind, I'm like, oh, he's not super worried about the sheen, he's not super worried about... Okay. Gotcha. Okay. We can do that. Let's come over here. So really what we can do, we'll do shadows. We will grab ourselves the basic flow opacity. We will come in with, see if it's slightly here. Let's do it here. Let's do this. Let's do this on multiply. It's going to look very weird at first, but I think if we put down the opacity after we're done with this, I think it'll actually look pretty cool. I can sort of like... It's almost like a marker. You know what I mean? Like, it's a really cool... I'm just thinking if the light's coming from there, you know... And then, like, here is this. It's almost like a Copic marker. So it looks a little weird right now. And then this one, real big. And see, this definitely affects the values, but it's supposed to. You know what I mean? So it is funny how much this feels like a marker. Just going over it with with marker. And all of these are going to have a little bit of shadow. So much time do you get to work? It's usually a 2-month process. So, or yeah, you get about a month to paint it. And you have, at least from my experience on the 5 I've worked on, get about a month. You have to turn in your sketches within 2 weeks. And then you get about 2 to 2.5 weeks, depending on the deadline, to get your finals sent in. And then if they do internal review, which they always do, but then if they have to send it out to any other licensors or whatever, that takes about a month. Then they give feedback. Then you have another like 1.5 to 2 weeks after that. So all told, you probably get about, the whole process takes about 4 months. You only get to paint for about, out of 4 months, for maybe 6 weeks out of those 4 months. But it is a waiting game. And then you can't show it or talk about it for like a year, which is always kind of crazy to me. You know, but that's part of the reveal. That's part of the fun of it, is like, you know, you get this like nice surprise. Oh, hey, yeah, guys, I worked on this. Ta-da. It's the same thing whenever I worked at Warhammer too. Warhammer, they were a little more lenient, but also the deadline wasn't a set in stone. Like it was very different. But yeah, no, there's a set deadline on like this time by this day at this time zone. You need these things turned in right now. Like, so they give you some time. And what's really cool is all the art directors I've worked with for Magic have been incredible. Like, and the nice thing is a majority of the art directors they have at working at Magic have done Magic cards for years, if not decades. So like, I kind of geeked out because 2 of my art directors I'm a fan of anyway. Like, I just like their artwork, and I was like, but getting to go back and forth and like figure out how stuff works, and like, well, can we try this, and what about these colors, and what about this tone and vibe, and does it match this, and what's the brief, and like, yeah, it's very dynamic, which is, I love it. Like, and they've been nothing but gracious and like with their time and knowledge and stuff, and I literally have, ever since working even on the 5 cards I have over the past like however many months, I have leveled up a lot, like mentally. It's just now I have to, my skill set has to get there, because now I know what I want to do. It's just, oh, how do I want to do it? How do I want to get there and approach that kind of level? And actually working like this, how I'm working right now, is part of that. Because normally I wouldn't do like a shadow pass to kind of experiment where my shadows are, but now I've done it enough times to where it's like, okay, even if it looks ugly, which it does, it's not very even, it doesn't look great, but like, it's letting me kind of see what I need to see. And like, if all else fails, I can just like lower this opacity down, and then, you know, now I still have a little bit of like a stain on it that just has a little bit of visual interest, but then I can do another shadow pass. I can do another, you know, which I probably will. This one, I don't think that worked out great. Like this sort of, it doesn't, I don't know. It doesn't do anything. Like, and maybe I'm worried about the shadows and I should be worried about highlights. You know, it's that type of thing. Like, am I thinking about it backwards? So do I have that, and do I actually need to come in here and be like, oh, actually this is highlights, and then you come and you can do like a color dodge, and then you pick out a color, like a, I know this is overcast, but if we wanted to pick like a kind of a, that color, and then do Actually, I don't want color dodge. I want, what do I want? Overlay? No. Actually, let me just do normal. Yeah, I'll just do normal for this one. You know. Come here, like, do I want this type of look? To where all of the edges catch something. Even if it doesn't make a lot of logistical sense. You see what I mean? Like, and then you come in here and you can just kind of edge, highlight. And would that be a better look for like what we're going for? And maybe that is kind of where we need to go. Is more of this sort of look right here. Block out these shapes. And then like yeah, so maybe embracing the highlight works better than trying to go for shadows, you know, because then that way we can use this as more of another way to differentiate our shapes. Kind of get that light versus dark versus light versus dark stuff. Because this gives us a little bit more variety to look at. That, hit that. You know, maybe it doesn't need any of it. Like, and see, it's funny because like at any point we can just come in and hide the sketch, and if it still works okay. Because the real secret to getting good poses and stuff, as long as you get the head in the right place and you do the hands, you can just do a head and hands, and then your brain kind of fills in the rest. Like, how does the arm have to be? How does the, you know, body contort to make the hands do that? There's highlights. Like if we bring sketch down. You know, and then with shadow and highlight, like how does that look? Like, looks a little weird, but I do this, and then let's go to filter, adjust, do saturation, filter mask. Oh, I don't need it on that one. I need it below. Let me remove layer. Okay. Here we go. Add colorize mask. Is that it? And maybe is it color? Why is it not? Oh. Didn't know if it had a pop-up somewhere else. Here's what we'll do. We'll just add see, this is the only deal with Krita. Works a little different whenever you start working with that. Okay. There we go. Okay. Well, that's cool. I like how that blue and that red are working together. That's actually really cool. Okay. We're going to keep that, but we're going to get rid of it on the jacket and on the mask, I think. Here, we can keep some of it there. We'll keep a little bit here. We're just going to dial it back quite a bit. We're going to keep it like that on the mask. I like that a lot. The kind of watercolory look to it. And we can do that. Maybe even on the darks here, we can keep some of that. It's nice. And that, and then... yeah, don't need it here. Don't need it here. Also don't need it there quite as much. Just gonna dull that down a little bit. But we'll keep some of that blue just to keep it in there. What's up, Houdini? Yeah, Rebelle 8 has been a game changer. I do think, like, they were already kind of ahead of the curve anyway, as far as like the realistic brush engine and the way the paint works on canvases and the way you do canvases and stuff. But Rebelle 8 just cranked it up 3 or 4 levels. Like, everybody else is in a fairly distant second place now. It's like, if you want a traditional look, Rebelle 8 is the one. It just is. So now I'm wondering, because I do really like how this looks. I like that sort of weird bleeding, wet marker busted on the paper sort of thing. So I wonder if we can actually come and start getting some splatters, take it into Rebelle. Start doing some like drippy watercolor, because that would kind of help out the, if I was worried that the piece wouldn't be dynamic, that's a quick way to add a lot of dynamics. You know what I mean? Is like, just add some paint splatter and figure it out. Like, because I really wanted this to be like a snowy sort of vibe. I could still do that, I think. Here, let me save. Then let me save as. Okay. Large file size. Cool. Then I'm gonna. Hans, what's up, my friend? Good to see you. I'm going to hop over here because I need to open Rebelle, and I'm pretty sure I have some stuff on the recently painted list that I'm not allowed to show anybody yet. So let me hop over to Rebelle. I saved that out. So what we had in Krita, I just saved out as a PNG file, and I'm going to import that PNG file into Rebelle. So that's all I'm doing right now. I just need to open Rebelle and make sure that I'm not like doing a bozo no, you know. Rebelle 8. Let me open clear list. Yes. Okay. Open. Also, that opened to that folder, so I'm glad I did that. All right, cool. Here we go. Now we'll hop back in. Sorry about that, gang. Didn't want to do nothing crazy, right? Did I see the new Procreate version? I have not. Did they? Are they hinting at the desktop stuff? Brent, what's up, brother? Yeah. Now we're cooking. Yes. So every time, and this is like a life hack that'll help you guys. If you're going into Rebelle, if you're bringing something into Rebelle, always right click, duplicate layer. Do all your Rebelle stuff on this top layer, because the way Rebelle's brush engine works, sometimes if you smear and smudge, it's like deleting information little bits at a time. Like it's thinning it out. Almost think of it like thinning the opacity out. So if you do that, if you just have one layer and you're doing that in Rebelle, sometimes you lose visual information. Like it just goes away. You're like essentially erasing it. But if you duplicate the layer on top, as you're smudging and doing your brushy stuff, the original will show underneath it. Does that make sense? So like you're always, it's going to really look more natural and more like, it's going to look less artificial. So what were they doing to Procreate? I know they were hinting at the desktop. I'm hoping against hope. So also pigment on, yes. Let's come in. Let's see what canvas we got. Yes, my favorite canvas. I actually bought it. The CA01 Canvas Artist. And then that is good. And then we're going to come into visual settings here. And I'm going to crank up this paint texture and the paper texture, both. So that way, look at that. Look at that yummy. See, even the stuff that's already on the canvas is starting to play around with the canvas a little bit. You see what I mean? And that's just coming from Krita. I haven't even put a Rebelle brushstroke on here. It's just having that canvas overlaid. And then whenever we start bringing in those Rebelle brushes, like, that's why I like starting sketches in Krita, because you can use this sort of wet, dirty brush sort of look, and it works super well bringing it in to Rebelle. So we have our palette knife, right? Now, if we come over here like that, we're going to do this. We're going to darken this a little bit. I'm going to do paint and mix. There it is. That's the one. That's what I wanted. Let's do bristle flat for the pigment, or the bristle brush. And then we will also get rid of the harsh line here. Here we go. And see what's fun about this? I can channel my like Frank Frazetta. You know? Do some of this. Nice blendy stuff. Get some of these strokes in there together. Then I can come in, I can get some light, hit some of that, kind of carve out some rugged edges here, have that. You see, I'm just putting down messy brush strokes here because what I'm going to do is actually bring that blue color in. It's a little much, but that's fine. We can, yeah, see, we can work with that. Get that nice sort of paneling in there. Okay. Brand new brushes, iCloud support. Hey, easily searching brushes. Each individual brush with a color history. Ooh, okay, so they're just like kind of up in the ante a little bit. They're, yeah, I need to dig in. I need to dig in and kind of see what they're working with, because like that's exciting. That's exciting stuff. See, let me grab, oh yeah, let me grab that, the blender brush. Let me come and do the palette knife dry. Make it kind of big. And then I can come in here and do this. And get rid of the crazy edges. And I can also do that here. That's the other great thing about making a duplicate layer. You can automatically grab a blender brush or go into the blending mode on any of these brushes and start working with the stuff that's already on your canvas. You don't have to like paint to bring stuff up. You can just like, see what I mean? Like I'm interacting with the line art now. Kind of doing that. So this is probably my preferred way to get rid of line art, is I can actually just come in and blend it out with a painterly brush. And that way it like still has a little bit of like darker charcoal sort of look to it. And see that? Like little tiny smudges like that really sell this idea. See what I mean? That it's like natively made in Rebelle. Even though it's not, which is really fun. And we'll kind of bring these in. Let me get the filbert brush and kind of blend. Then I can come in and clean this up with the blender brush, which is fun. I always like this sort of thing. Just using, who knew using a blender brush could make things look more natural, because you're essentially rendering without any pigment on your brush. You're just rendering using what's already on the canvas, right? So yeah, we're gonna push that red up, because then we can do this. See if we want to get rid of a little more of the black line here. Do I ever play with the opacity on this? A little bit. So if a client comes by and they say, hey, we just want a little bit of like brushwork stuff, yeah, I'll come into Rebelle. I'll do a duplicate layer, and then I'll kind of do what I'm doing here and then lower the opacity down to like 25%. Because then that way there's a little bit of something and you get the canvas texture, but it's not so overbearing that like they're not gonna, it's not gonna override all the rendering, because there's a lot of clients that want very, very high render. It was funny with Magic, 2 of my pieces, they wanted very painterly. And then they wanted, stuff very highly rendered. Like, very highly rendered. So, and those are the ones, of course, that take the longest. Painterly stuff, not that I'm like super fast, but I can knock it out pretty quick. I don't quite know what I want to do with the shorts and the jacket yet. But no official desktop version for Procreate. Sad day. I think they would crush a desktop version. I can see why they don't, because that's a whole other can of worms, like for support, and yeah. And then you're gonna have people demanding 8,000 features. Why isn't this more like Rebelle? Why isn't this more like, you're just opening a can. So I get it why they don't. I just think it'd be really cool to have something like that. And I guess let's see, is Infinite Painter? Yeah, is Infinite Painter a desktop app? ArtRage is, Krita is, Clip Studio is. Wonder if any of those more dedicated like Art Studio Pro type stuff has desktop versions. Because I will say Adobe Fresco, I'm not the biggest Adobe fan, but Adobe Fresco actually does pretty well as being a desktop version of Procreate, That's pretty good. Let's see. So funny. You see all the weird artifacting because of the canvas texture. But then you zoom in And oh, it looks so pretty. You're right. MS Paint. It's coming back for the crown. I wonder. Subtle sharpen. Oh yeah, by the way, that added a subtle sharpen filter, which is great. It's basically unsharpened mask. It's almost verbatim what it does. The math is almost identical, which is great. It just makes the impasto strokes and the canvas texture pop a little bit more. And there's like see if you have the blues. See, and that might be, this is a very comic book thing to do, but put in your local colors, your like local values and your local colors. Don't worry about highlights and shadows too much, but go in, kind of make some stuff, and then come in and be like, oh, we need this to be a warm thing. You grab an orange, saturations, yeah, about mid, and then you up the strength. You see what I mean? You get, in Photoshop, this is called photo filter. It does the same thing. I think colorize makes more sense, like as far as what it's actually doing. But yeah, and then you can crank up the saturation and stuff. But see, now it's almost like, hey, it's a sunrise. You can like lower that down, strength's heavy, but you can do any kind of color you want. Makes it very, very cool. But this is actually how a lot of comic book artists work, is they'll put in their flats, then they'll come in and do something like this to get a real like solid color key. And then they're going to come in and either erase stuff out or they're going to like paint on top of it. But I think it's definitely a cool way to go, you know? And then like, yeah, if we wanted, oh, you could do like this type of blue. You do cyan, crank that up, you know? I think the orange looks kind of cool, but really what it does is it harmonizes your colors. This acts as a mother color that it blends in with every other color and value that you have, and it just sort of like ties it all together. Yeah, it's true. I can raise that. So let's cancel. So let's bring our reference back. This is probably a great time for reference. I get reference here. And see, you can see kind of the highlight of the surrounding stuff on leather. This is a different material, but yeah, you get that nice sort of look. Like same thing here. See how this is kind of like a gray green. What would this be? Not Payne's gray. Trying to think of what like traditional paint color this is, because this is a color. It's a very distinct. I think there's one called slate green. That's this sort of. And then yeah, see, because you have that almost that cyan color, and then you have the highlights there. And see, like I always say, it's kind of my goal in life to figure out a way to mix a style kind of like this with like Ashley Wood style, very crazy, thick impasto brushwork. I think that would be money. What's missing in Rebelle 8 that Photoshop has that you missed the most? All of the kind of like drafting mode things, you know, setting up to be able to paint live in CMYK while your file type's in RGB. It's kind of in the weeds stuff, like stuff that's a little more, you know, a dot gain 20%. I know there's a grayscale mode in, like, I think you hit Y or something and then it turns everything grayscale in Rebelle, which is cool. But like noise filters, like the different ways you can do, they have their whole filter gallery. There's actually a slider or it is a slider, but it's like a filter layer called Vibrance. And Vibrance is money. Like, it's not a saturation thing. Because people think that the Vibrance slider and saturation are the same. But like, saturation can jack up your colors like crazy. The Vibrance never changes your colors. It just makes them more of themselves, right? It's just really, yeah, it's like punchy. And it's great. I do a Vibrance tweak. I up the Vibrance on every painting before I send it out to a client. Every single time. It's one of the things I do in post-production. It's like, okay, Vibrance, crank it by 30-40%, because the colors are deeper. I guess that's a good way to put it. It's not that they're more punchy or vibrant, it's that they're deeper. It seems like they're like more enriched into the canvas, and it's very hard. It's like a deeper density of information. It's very, very cool. And I don't think any other program has it. Not that I've seen. Not that does it that well, at least. So yeah, maybe let's do that. Let's open new layer, right? Let's get ourselves a do I want to do a watercolor glaze, maybe? We'll glaze it up. 420 glaze it, you know what I'm saying? Let's do the wash. Let's do the paint and yeah, that was like kind of the camo off color thing, the fatigue, but now this is a black jacket. So yeah, just anything kind of dark. We can try this more cyan color, you know. Let's try that. Then what we'll do here, we can come in. I'm going to do the same thing here. Yeah, because it's going to flatten out stuff a little bit, but that's fine. It's going to come in here like so. Hit up that jacket. And then this is actually a piece of the jacket as well. I could get rid of this part. That'd be fine, actually. But we're going to do that. I'm going to bring this in. Hit that right here as well. I know it's messing up the value, but that's because I'm going to come in here, turn that pigment off so we can just do a color. There it is. Yeah. Yeah, kind of the golden age stuff looks great. I will tell you, if you are a fan of the golden era, like John Buscema style stuff, the new run of Conan the Barbarian is sick. It is the sickest looking comic I've ever seen in my life. Not all because, but mainly, in my opinion, because of Rob Della Torre. That dude is a demon. I don't know how. I don't know what he sold his soul to be able to paint and ink and stuff like that. But like, it's a revelation. Every single panel he makes is like my favorite Frank Frazetta painting. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how, but that dude's a monster. It's ridiculous. He doesn't have a bad day. Like, everything he makes is perfect. It's ridiculous. See, and I know this isn't popping because the values aren't right. I understand. I understand that's what the case is. But this is going to throw me for a loop. So I don't quite know exactly what I want to do with it, you know? And I did this to myself because I'm like, how about I do an overcast painting of snow? And all that's going to do is like dull out the colors. Because if I come up here, let's do this. Boom. Oil painting overcast scene. Yeah. So this is exactly what I mean. Like, yeah, actually, and to be fair, there's way more like hits of light and stuff like that. But the thing about overcast scenes is they're all kind of like this, right? Like, makes it very tricky to like this, where there's kind of shadows and not really highlights. Everything's a mid-tone. I just have to like get better at it. You know what I mean? It's just so difficult to do. And you think it would be easy because you don't have to worry about highlights and shadow, but it makes it infinitely harder to me to get it to where it stays dynamic and not flat. But see how it's kind of like this is kind of checkerboarded, light with the dark with the light with the dark with the light, like you're boom 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 boom, you're kind of over. What's up, Jays? So it depends on the painting. Some paintings, they start off, like if I get a brief from a client and they're like, I need this to pop your eye sockets out, I'm going to start with like a notan, with like black versus white, and figure out the shapes first, and then kind of carve midtones into it, if that makes sense. But then something like this, to where, you know, we're working, you know, with midtone stuff and like not super strong values either direction, not bright highlights, not dark shadows. This is kind of hard mode for me because it's harder to like see it. So you have to keep tweaking and throwing something and doing that and putting this here and then like, well, does that feel right? Does that look right? It just takes time. And I get very impatient. If it's not dynamic and exciting pretty quickly, it turns into a slog. It's just, yeah, and I mean, I can do the abstract painter thing. Let me come in and bring in a whole bunch of like splattery brushstrokes and, you know, we'll try all that and we'll see kind of what happens. Keep it dynamic that way. So like if we have something like this and like New layer. You know, we have but since everything's a midtone, even this isn't super working. What if you like I also don't want to like block the design, you know? But yeah, I like to usually do my values pretty strong. So working like this is actually kind of against my, I don't know, my nature, but I think it's going to make for a cooler painting later. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's going to work later, just not right now. Because these type of paintings seem to have the ugly phase for like 85% of it. And then, like, let's say you leave for a day and then come back, and then you open it and you're like, oh, I know what I have to do. And then you tweak 4 or 5 things, and then it looks way better. You know? Watercolor weight. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Who does that? Actually, a lot of people do that. And really, Spider-Verse did that. And funnily enough, if you went to go see Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, they used Rebelle for all the watercolor stuff. They literally used Rebelle for it. Lose vision, motivation, tend to forget my darker values. And yeah, so that's fair. I mean, that happens. That absolutely happens. That's why, because I mean, you know, we have some references right here. But like, that's why if we go into black and white here, let's go to canvas, grayscale. See, a lot of darker midtones here, but yeah, this works well because the eyes are the big thing that pop out of kind of the darker deal. This is almost like a Waterhouse painting or something. Like, I could see this being a Waterhouse painting. But then like you have something like this, super high dynamic range. And then even this right here, you have the darkest darks. You have those shapes, right? This one's a little more mid-tony. Yeah, you have some dark darks and kind of the ambient occlusion areas where the folds don't let light in. But otherwise, you're kind of in your mid-tone. And then, yeah, out of focus, so you can impressionize that. Like, yeah, this does I'm always stunned with how good the, like, professional comic book artists are at, like, the confident line weights and the confident dynamics of it. It's just so far out of my realm that I'm always kind of, like, blown away by it. So, yeah, if we do something like that, we have that. If we do a bristle brush, and then we like sorry, checking my, oh my god, checking my phone, getting videos from my baby girl's daycare, so they're doing a dance party, so that's awesome. What was I saying? Oh yeah, if I come in try to do this like impressionistic stuff, we can maybe do that. Do kind of the painterly building sort of stuff. Get that nice watercolor slight drip coming in. Then we can like get something a little darker. Kind of frame our subject a little more. So we have the streaky lines. This can actually be darker. You know, I'm like thinking like, what if this is a window seal type of thing? But yeah, those really confident dynamic shapes, I'm always kind of blown away by. Yeah, Impressionism is definitely my kind of comfort food because I can just paint until it kind of reminds me of the thing. And that's the whole idea of Impressionism is like, can you get the intent behind it? And if you can, congrats, you got it. But yeah, the more this sort of like, I put every kind of crease into the jacket during the sketch, I sort of lose it. You know what I mean? I sort of like lose the message. Like in a perfect world, I could paint like Tyler Jacobson, where somehow he does it all. He can do Impressionism inside of his highly rendered stuff, and it looks perfect. And I'm like, I don't understand how that guy does that, you know? So we're gonna come in and do some of this. And we're gonna darken. Let's bring that back in. Let's get a little messy. See, we're just gonna kind of add that up a little bit. Do that, darken it out. So bring this down. That one. Sort of that like there. Yeah, and this one kind of goes all over the place, right? But maybe if I make the messy marks and then I can see it and kind of render out the rest of it, you know, that might be a good way to go. Yeah, so I abandoned lines for a long time. And then what I started realizing is like the lines were almost like a cheat code in a way. Like after a while, adding lines really did help keep dynamics going pretty well in the painting. Like it helped give a little more sense of like direction, because I just thought of lines the same way I think of like paint strokes. I was like, okay, why is this paint stroke here? Like right now it's kind of a weird example because I'm just willy-nilly throwing paint strokes. There's not a lot of rhyme or reason to it, but it's really just to get visual information down. And that's sort of how I treated lines for a while, and it did work. It helped, you know. Oh, I wonder, can I? Hey, maybe. Can I underlight this? You know what I mean? Let me do that. This doesn't really make any sense, but what if I came in like so, did the same thing here. Let me just start adding stuff. Even if it looks wrong, even if it looks bad, like, let's just add stuff and see what starts happening after a while. You know? And this, honestly, is a majority of how my workday goes. Is I'm like, well, let me try that. Nope, that didn't work. Let me try that. Nope, that didn't work. You know, negative crutch when you might be able to paint something in detail. Yeah, so it does come down to like form and fundamentals, and yeah, it's cool and it's fun, but also, yeah, are you hiding from maybe one of the weaknesses that you might have? Or yeah, that's a very good point. I'm gonna add some blue, just random blue inside of here. We can like play around with it a little bit. And then like see, the shorts need to actually come over like that. Darken this. See, I'm gonna sort of start getting rid of some of the sketch stuff. Darken that. Just adding some random brights and darks and kind of see what we end up with here in a minute. Yeah, that's my thought too, is like, you know, and it's very difficult to do the very strong strong line art type stuff. Like you can train how to do it just like you can train to do anything. But, you know, there is a lot in the industry, and I think it is that way for a reason. I think that way it's easier for a colorist to work on. It's easier to be able to manipulate and move and resize. It doesn't look as out of place with like lettering bubbles, because the lettering bubbles are also very sharp, I guess. So it is weird to see very painterly stuff. Like I think of course Ashley Wood, but then like, is Ben Templesmith one of them? That's very like, he does all of his stuff just on watercolor paper, or like he inks, but he does like ink paintings, you know. It's a different thing. Like you have different problems to solve, you know. Then here's the thing with the snow. If we wanted this to be this way, and then you can come in and make this, let's go ahead, let's grab one of our like palette knives. You know what I mean? Just like very little hits of blurry, and then some stronger hits of like very small, like it's all coming one way. Just sort of get this on the canvas, you know? And like, how heavy do we want the snowstorm? And remember, it's all about kind of selling the idea of it. So I know a lot of people get really nervous to add like effects type stuff to their art, because they're like, I work so hard to render out the blah blah blah, and like, oh, I don't want to block all this hard work I did. And like, I get it, but also at the end of the day, like, what are you making? You're making an image, so you have to service the entire image rather than, because and I hate to break it to you, because I'm also, you know, I'm an artist, right? A lot of artists, well, definitely a lot of non-artists, they don't care about your technique. Not really. They could be impressed with it and they go, oh, wow. But like, they don't really care. And ironically, a lot of artists don't care. They care about the image, which, as you should. You're making an image, you should probably care about the thing you're making. You know what I mean? But what I mean by that is like, I do think like adding the snow right here is actually, I think, doing a lot of good to the image right now. In fact, I think it's actually helping, because now the focus is not on like how poorly Spider-Man is rendered. You know, it's more, oh, he's perched up, it's snowing. You're telling more of the story of the inside of the image. Does that make sense? Like, that's now your in. The person looking at it can make that distinction now. And then what's really fun is Yeah, make the flakes random. But also, that's why these nice kind of the dry brushes, but also some of the wet blend brushes work really well, because it does some of the blending for you. It gets that focus out of there, or defocuses, you know what I mean? Like, it makes it really fun to kind of come in and play with. Because see, you get like these type of deals. And then what's real fun is you get blends like that, to where you're also blending in the paint strokes with the colors and stuff underneath it. Because that's when you really start, you know, finding some cool stuff. So like at this point, I'm going to do the cardinal sin. I'm going to just merge all of my layers. Merge layers. Did it not merge all my layers? Merge layers. Let's see. Merge visible layers. There it is. Okay. I was like, why didn't it not merge all my layers? But okay. So now everything's on the one layer, right? There's no going back. This is what we're going to use, and we're going to take it from here. I'm going to duplicate the layer. Now this is where we can come and be like, hey, I'm going to get my knife. I'm going to get my blending mode. And then you can start like doing really interesting things by blending in. And we're blending in some of our line art with some of the color, with some of the snow, with some of the, you see what I mean? Like, and we're going to keep some of them very sharp, but then some of them that are already kind of blended, we're going to blend out a little more. And we're going to sort of hit this like here. Yeah, and you get like one of these nice dry knives. And then what you're going to start getting is stuff that starts blending really well together. And it's going to look more like a planned painting. Because I realize it's not so much about how well you plan. And you hear all the sayings like, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, which I get it. But also, you can recover pretty well if you know your tools and kind of how some of this stuff works. Like how your edges work and what is your goal for the image. Like, you can do a lot of really cool recoveries, you know, and make it look like you had this plan from the very beginning. You have something like this. And see, what's funny is now we have like these shapes. The jacket's pretty big. I'm coming in, kind of blending in some of this stuff together. Just kind of making a mess of it. You know, it's ironic that we start, you know, here's a very sharp, you know, here's a very sharp sketch with a very specific type of sketching brush and all that, just to come in and do this. Just to kind of, you know. All right, take it easy, Brent. Yeah, I'm actually going to head off here in probably about 25 minutes. I have my Zoom meeting. Gotta meet with some peoples. But I might actually also do an art live stream tomorrow. Normally I just do Wednesdays, but I may continue this one tomorrow. That way we give ourselves a little bit of time to sleep on it, you know, rest on it, and then we can kind of come back and see what we might want to do with it, like where we want to go. See, I have these. It's right here. Kind of blending out this stuff. So yeah, right now it's sort of that all smudgy mess, right? Getting rid of any sort of sketch lines that I had. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Because in that way we can just do a straight up paint session. I'm gonna keep that. I like that. See, in a lot of ways, this just acts as a new underpainting. You might say it's a lot of work just to get another underpainting, but, you know, it is what it is. Then we got that white. We can back over here. Because at least we know kind of what we're looking at now, right? See, and that's not quite what I want. Yeah, we'll do that. Kind of carve the light shape. You know. We'll do that. All right, Spec. Lack of perspective tools. Oh yeah, true. It's actually making the structure. Yeah. So I will say that is one of the things with Rebelle. Well, not just Rebelle. Any sort of effect of like, here's thick paint. Here's you know, whatever, like impasto, and it's all very flat, as in you're looking at a canvas, the canvas is being lit from a direction, and the paint is casting shadows on the canvas, not within the painting. So I will say that's where stuff like Photoshop can actually come in pretty handy, to where you can paint some painterly texture on its own layer. And I mean, I guess you can do it here too. And then what you can do is actually like warp it and like perspective grid it and all that stuff, and like lay it flat and stretch it and all that. You see a lot of that in concept art, especially in like video game concept art, like Assassin's Creed. Every piece of video game, or every piece of Assassin's Creed concept art I've really ever seen, whenever they do photo bashing, they take the texture and then they warp it around, or they push it or pull it or like stretch it or like make it go onto a perspective grid. That's very, very true. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a deal. Like if I wanted to, and that's something we might think about doing for tomorrow, I could get a royalty-free picture of like a skyscraper with a gargoyle or something, and just kind of see how that building is set up, and then photo bash that onto this, and then yeah, right, yeah, like shrubbery texture. What do they call it in 3D? Greebles. That where you're adding detail which doesn't really mean anything, but like it's noise. It's visual form and noise adding to it. You can really do that with putting down a traditional texture and like pushing and pulling. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think that might be interesting. File save. Then we have Rebelle. Boom. So that might be fun to do. Sort of the photo bash texture, the city thing, and then make it look more painterly afterwards. We could do something like that. But then we're going to have to up the detail on kind of everything across the board. Because I do like this out here, kind of the snowy area, being completely nondescript and like just paint strokes. So I think I'm going to keep that. We might kind of pretty up some of the paint strokes. Like I like this big one right here. We might do some more blends and stuff. But I do want to keep it very like thick paint. Yeah, just any sort of photo bash texture type thing. It is much easier in like a Photoshop or a Clip Studio. Krita even. Krita actually, I think you can snap stuff to the grid, which is really cool. Because I have a plugin for Photoshop that I got a long time ago, and it's called Perspective Tools, and it does that. Like, you can select something on a layer and then have it, if you had made a grid, like you hit a button and then you just tell it, do you want it on the X, Y, or Z, and then it like snaps it to it. It just moves the picture to it, and then you can drag the picture with the move tool, and it stays on the perspective grid. It's really cool. I haven't used it a lot to like know really how to do it, but I think with some of the new projects that are coming up, I think I'm going to have to learn how to do it. Yeah, like, see, I'm digging some of the paint stroke stuff here, but I think it definitely does need some sort of, one, the design of the jacket I think needs to change a little bit. I might make it more of a leather jacket thing instead of the big puffy coat. Because if we look at our references, we can get away with more of these type of lines and that type of rendering if it's a leather jacket, you know, rather than the big puffy thing. Yeah, we're getting some cool stuff in here. I think this is just going to be one of those that's just going to take a long time to paint. You know, this one's just going to take a while. Also, I think maybe having, if I do knife drive this, grab that black, bring it here. I can always bring that snow back in, but maybe if I do something like this, start bringing in more comic book-esque harsh blacks to some of the shadow shapes, you know? You know? Just making these sort of deals. And I don't want to go over that paint too much, but Just something for the eye to do. It has to look at other contrasts for a little bit, you know? Photoshop to Clip Studio, I prefer it a lot more. Yes. So you can bring all of anything .abr, you can bring right into Clip. Some of them you might have to adjust it. Also, just because back whenever I made a lot of my brush packs, it was an older version of Clip. It was like Clip Studio version 2. Now we're on Clip Studio version 4. And I know they've changed a lot of stuff on the back end. So, but yeah, all of them should import and they should do pretty well. But the cool thing about Clip is since that brush engine is so vast and you can change so much stuff, feel free to like bring my brushes in and just start tweaking them and like shifting around how the color jitter or like brush stroke jitter and any of that stuff. Just play with them. You know what I mean? Like the settings by themselves should be okay. But yeah, dig in there and figure it out, because I am currently making my 2026 brush pack, and I'm going to be testing it natively in the newest version of Clip Studio. And even whenever you buy the brush pack, it might come with like use this version for Clip, because what I'll do is I'll probably bring that brush pack into Clip, make the edits I want to on my end, and then export it out as a Clip Studio brush pack, as opposed to specifically just Photoshop. So you'll get both. I'm not going to charge extra for any of them. It's just going to be all part of the 2026 brush pack. Like, hey, if you want Photoshop, here's this one. If you want Clip, here's this one. You know, and then I may do like a little sample thing for Rebelle, because Rebelle's brush engine's a whole different animal. But yeah, I kind of get the same vibe. You know, make sure the vibe check works okay. But yeah, let me go ahead, let me save this. So yeah, I think I'm gonna call it here. I will be streaming more tomorrow. I will be streaming more artwork tomorrow. Normally it's like a game stream, but I'll do the game stream on Friday. We'll do more of this. I do want to focus on this piece. I think it could turn out really, really cool. I just need to like make decisions based on it. Let me move my mic real quick. Here we go. Let me come in here. Let me get the properties. Every time I move the mic, it does some weird noise stuff. So we have this. There we go. I just need to change that threshold, I guess. Because I have all these fans pointing at me and stuff, and I don't want any of that noise to like come through. So maybe that might work a little better. Working and talking is hard. Yeah, it's tricky, you know. Yeah, and like we'll get into the zone and stuff, but yeah, I think reciting where my head's at is probably a good exercise while I'm painting. I think it's hard to do. And here's the other thing. What's really funny, and I thought about making a YouTube video about this, but I actually don't know what my next YouTube video is going to be about, because we're doing a weekly live stream now, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to cover on the YouTube videos. It might be like settings, like here's Clip Studio settings or Rebelle settings or whatever. I need to kind of refocus on how those YouTube videos work, or like what people are really interested in like watching on that. Because if they just want to see me paint, they can watch the live stream. That's kind of how I'm viewing it now. But yeah, kind of locking in and trying to find the process. But whenever you work like this, a vast majority of the painting is very ugly. It's ugly, even if you're a pro. It's not pretty while you're making it. You know, it's a lot of arduous back and forth, and you're making decisions, and how does this look? And no, that's not right. It's a lot of like existential dread, you know, mixed with decision making, mixed with all this other stuff. And that's the same for everybody. No one if you ever see a really highly polished like time lapse, or you see somebody that's just like, they just got it figured out the whole time, one of two things. Number one, they're lying to you. Or number two, they have done that specific piece 5 times preparing to record the time lapse that they put on their social media. I'm a big fan of like the creative process, as ugly as it is. I think more people need to see that. And I think more people need to see, this session was kind of crappy. This session didn't go well. Oh, maybe I need to try this next time. That's really what the job is. That's what, whenever you're emailing back and forth with your client, some stuff works and some stuff doesn't. And what you do is you just take all of your experience and knowledge and you try to like manipulate it to make the best image possible on the first go round. But the real beauty of it's in iteration, like working on it over and over and over again over the course of a week. You keep coming back to it and you refine this and you do this and that fix that problem, but now introduce that problem. What are we going to do? Like creativity at the end of the day is just problem solving. It's not what ideas you have. No one cares about the ideas. No one cares. How do you execute it? Like, how do you deliver on it? That's everything. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that, especially in kind of the algorithm, social media kind of way. They think you have to be good at all of it all the time, perfectly forever. And that's demonstrably not true. Like, in fact, I'd be very fishy. It would not pass the smell test for me if somebody was just that good all the time and everything they put down was perfect. And oh yeah, this one, and everyone wants to hire me and I'm the coolest. Like, no, I think, something's off on that. I'm just a big fan of the ugliness of it. And like, you work hard because at the end of it, you get a thing. And like, you only get a diamond from pressure, right? That's the only way you get, you got to push and it's draining and it's an arduous, like condensing. And then you get something at the end that you'd be like, that was worth the effort. And I think that's, it's not like the coolest social media thing. It's not going to do well on TikTok. It's not going to, it is what it is. I would rather show you the ugly phases, and this isn't working, and what are we going to do, and how are we going to fix it? Because I think there's more value in that than just being good at everything all the time, which I just don't think is fair. I don't think that's, I mean, I wish everybody could be great at everything all the time, but like, that's just not reality. And I think the more you get that reality of like, oh, it's okay to have ugly phases of a painting. In fact, like a majority of my stuff is pretty ugly 70% of the way through it. And it's only whenever everything's kind of in its right place and then the colors are sort of working. And then if I push the values a little more, it's all a little stretching here and there. Like, oh, well, maybe here we do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And enough of that over 40 hours. And then you got a good piece. But nobody starts off with like, I have the perfect composition and it's going to look amazing every time. Like, no, you see the end product a lot of times, but you don't see what got it there. It's that whole tip of the iceberg theory, right? You see that very tip of it and there's ice there, but then you look under the water and it's mountains of just nonsense down there. And that's what art is. And the more people embrace that side of it, I think you're going to have more artists who end up better because of it. But overall, you'll have more artists anyway. Because you can't edit words that aren't on the page. You can't edit paint strokes that don't exist. Like, more people just need to get started. And I think the more you get started and then the more you like rack your brain in trying to solve this problem, you're going to get better. Because even if you either succeed or you get experience, there's no real failure. You just like tried it and it didn't work. Oh, well, we'll try something else next time. Like, just, tons of time on one piece and start questioning. Yeah. So there is a diminishing returns thing to where if I just can't get it after a certain amount of time, I just scrap it. That goes on the scrap heap. It's like, well, couldn't figure that one out. Well, better luck next time. Maybe I'll wake up one day and see it and figure out how to solve it and go back to it. But like, no, I have a whole folder full of stuff that just doesn't work. And, you know, it might work one day, but maybe not. Because you never start from zero, you start from experience. That's what I'll always say. Like, you never really failed because you got time. And time under the gun, you know, time in the cockpit, whatever you want to call it. That's everything. And whenever you realize you can get yourself in situations that you haven't been in before and make your way out of it, that's the skill set. The skill set is like, how do I get out of this one? You know, you're like a Sherlock Holmes or something. You're like, how do I get it? I'm in a weird spot right now. I can't figure this one out. How are we going to do it? And I think the more you do that, the more you realize you trust the process. You go back to your fundamentals. You do good values. You maybe get some color theory in there. Edges work, you know, brush works, cool. What's your composition like? You go backwards and look at it, and you usually find what you're looking for. A vast majority of the time, 90% of the time, it's values. I say it for me, I say it for everybody. Every artist that I work with that does mentorships or whatever with me, everything that we can fix all comes down to the values. Because if it's a good piece, it works in black and white. And then you can do whatever you want with color and edges and cool trinkety stuff, like cool gimmicks. And you know, they're not gimmicks, but like the little seasonings. You can do all whatever you want. But like if the values work, the whole thing works. And the values deals with composition and, you know, where are those values aligned and how do they look on the canvas? It all works together, but really your values, if your values work, that's it. And I would say on this piece right here, my values are off. And that's why we're looking at it and like, well, what does it need? What does it need? What does it need? It needs better values, really. It's, to me, it's everything. Like you can make it black and white. You can make it, you know, one color, monochromatic, split complementary, whatever colors you think might look cool. As long as you don't change the values, you're good, right? But that's it for me for today. I think, you know, we've been for about 2.5 hours. So yeah, we're right on the money. And I think we're gonna stream some more art tomorrow. Cause yeah, this has been a lot of fun. I do go live for artwork every Wednesday. Then I do some gaming stuff Thursday and Friday. But tomorrow I might do another art stream. I think this one's fun. This one's valuable. And yeah, I won't have to leave as early next time, so I could probably do like a 3.5, 4 hour stream. We can really knock out this Spider-Man piece, kind of, you know, we'll make it work. We can maybe take it into Photoshop, do some photo bashing, find some royalty-free pictures of some buildings. We can figure it out, right? Make this look pretty cool. But that's it for me. You guys have been fantastic. Thank you so much for hanging out. And we will see you. We'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, I think that sounds fun. So yeah, I'll go live Twitch and YouTube, and we're gonna have a lot of fun. And then Friday, for the video games stuff, we might do some Street Fighter. I've been needing to practice Street Fighter for sure. Doing a tournament in March, so we got to get some reps in. Then maybe some Monster Hunter. I want to start playing more Monster Hunter. I have it installed. Need to dig in. Need to do all that. But that's my time for today. You guys have been fantastic. I got to go to my meeting. It starts in about 10 minutes. So yeah, I'm going to get something to eat, something to drink, and all that. But I'll see you tomorrow for sure. We're going to try keep knocking out this painting. Might go into Photoshop, photo bashing. We'll figure it out. We'll make this look slick. All right. But that's it. I'll see you guys. Bye.